Hello, music fans, and welcome to Death by Unicorn, where we talk about metal, rock, and prog music. Today's video, I'm going to talk about 10 albums from 2024, 10 rock albums from 2024 that you have to hear. And I'm not going to include any progressive rock, as I'm going to make a separate video for that. But in this video, I decided to, instead of focusing on just one subgenre of rock, I'm picking my favorite rock album in 10 different subgenres of rock. So you're going to get a really good variety of styles here. So I'm going to pick a blues rock, an art rock, alternative rock, math rock, psychedelic rock, post rock, hard rock, indie rock, punk rock, and pop rock. You're going to get 10 album recommendations today. They're going to be in all those genres. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. And I think I'll start with my favorite of them and kind of work to my least favorite, but they're all pretty good. They're all excellent, or at least very good. Let's start with blues rock. My favorite blues rock album of 2024 is by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. It's called Flight B741. This is the 26th album by this prolific Australian band. And this is blues rock, but it's got, of course, like their psychedelic and progressive flair to it, and it's got southern and hard rock influences as well. This band, they dropped their first album back in 2012, and they've already released 26 albums, so they average more than 2 albums a year in terms of releases. Almost every album they put out is completely different. This band's fascinating. They completely reinvent themselves with each release. So going into listening to this for the first time, I had no idea what this would sound like. It sounds most like their album Fishing for Fishies from 2019 to me. It's that blues rock with a lot of harmonica. My favorite track here is Field of Vision. I like the opening riff. It's got that 11-beat sequence before going into a nice groovy 4/4 blues rock song with excellent playing from all members. The music on this album actually kind of reminds me of Deep Purple a bit, and I've heard others compare it to classic southern rock bands like the Allman Brothers, Lynyrd Skynyrd, or classic rock bands like the Rolling Stones, or even jam bands like the Grateful Dead. It's kind of like a combo of all of that with a little psych and prog mixed in there. If that sounds good to you, check out King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Flight B741. Time for some water. All right, next rock subgenre we're going to talk about is art rock. And my favorite art rock album of 2024 is by the band called The Smile. And it's called Cutouts. This is art rock. It's got some post-punk, electronic, alternative, experimental, and progressive rock influences. Check out the song Zero Sum for a preview of this. This is the 3rd album by this band from the UK. The band features Tom York and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead. So check it out if you're a fan of them. And this might be a hot take, but I actually think the 3 albums by The Smile have been better than anything Radiohead has done since OK Computer. Though I did like A Moon-Shaped Pool quite a bit, so that rivals some of these. One of the singles they released for Cutouts, Zero Sum, has some of the coolest sounding guitar playing I've heard from Johnny Greenwood. He uses that dotted 8th note delay effect, and he uses a technique with his right hand where he taps it against the strings on each downbeat, and it mutes them, making this percussive sound. That acts as the metronome while playing notes between these taps. You just have to hear it. It sounds so cool. This is my favorite song by The Smile, Zero Sum. And their album from earlier in the year, they released 2 albums in 2024. Wall of Eyes, that's excellent as well. So I knew this would be excellent. It's even better than Wall of Eyes for me. So check it out, Cutouts by The Smile. Next up, let's talk about alternative rock. And for this one, I'm picking Childish Japes and Joanna Teeters with their album Matters of Life and Death, Part 2. This is kind of alternative rock, but it's also kind of jazz, rock, soul, and indie a little bit. I didn't pick a category for jazz, rock, or soul. I might do a separate video for jazz fusion. But this one I feel fit well enough in alternative rock. Check out the song Vignettes for a preview here. This is the 5th album by Childish Japes and the 3rd album by Joanna Teeters. And I think it's the second collaborative album where these two entities work together. And I love the last album they did together, which was part 1 of this, Matters of Life and Death Part 1. And this one continues that greatness, just great jazzy guitar, soulful female vocals. And I think people who like the release from earlier in the year by Willow will like this. So check out Childish Japes and Joanna Teeters and Matters of Life and Death Part 2, if that sounds good to you. Let's jump to math rock now. And this is one I mentioned in my top 10 instrumental albums of 2024. So check out that video on my channel if you haven't seen that already and you like instrumental music. This is Wombat Supernova and their album Ape Woman vs. Turbo. It's instrumental math rock. It's got some post-rock, progressive metal, post-hardcore, mathcore influences. Check out the song Bertrand for a preview of this. And this is their debut album. They're from France, and it's just some of the most fun instrumental music I've heard this year. It manages to be instrumental, but also silly and fun, and has moments that sound like circus music, moments that sound like video game music. A lot of variety on here in mood with slow passages and also some fast, heavy passages and everything in between. If you like Nuclear Power Trio, I think you'll like this. It's a similarly silly instrumental band. But the playing style here is more math rock and post-hardcore style of guitar playing, like what you'd hear from This Town Needs Guns, Sean, and The Fall of Troy. And there's even some pretty heavy and dissonant moments that reminded me of some avant-garde mathcore stuff like Psyopus, I Wrestled a Bear Once, and Dillinger Escape Plan, but only from time to time, so not enough to like consider this a metal album. It's still kind of instrumental math rock to me. If that sounds good to you, check out Wombat Supernova, Ape Woman vs. Turbo. Next, let's talk about psychedelic rock. And for this one, I'm picking Slift is the name of the band. And the album is called Ilion. And this is kind of heavy psych rock with some stoner doom, metal, progressive, ambient, and space rock influences. Check out the song Uruk for a preview here. This is the 3rd album by this French band. If you're a fan of Elder, Mastodon, and Intronaut, I think you'll like this. I love how atmospheric this is. I love their harmony vocals. And in Uruk, I love the 5 beat per bar stuff they do, the odd time signature stuff, and the fun guitar solo and how hypnotic it is. And my other favorite track on here is The Story That Has Never Been Told. That sounds good to you. Check out Ilion, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, by the band Slift. Great heavy psychedelic rock album. All right, we have next, we're going to go to post-rock. With post-rock, I've picked my favorite post-rock album of 2024 as Midas Fall is the band, and the album's called Cold Waves Divide Us. And so far, all of these albums have been in my excellent tier. This is the last one that I'm going to mention that's excellent tier. Then after that, they jump down to very good, which is still, very good, but not quite excellent. But this one is excellent. It is post-rock with electronic, alternative, progressive, gothic, and math rock influences. Check out the song I Am Wrong for a preview. And this is the 5th album by this band from the UK. It reminds me of Sigur Rós style post-rock, but it has strong female vocals. It's really relaxing and beautiful music that takes you on a journey. That sounds good. Check out Midas Fall with Cold Waves Divide Us. Time for some more water. Sorry, I got a bit of a cold here, so forgive my voice and my constant need for water and the odd sniffle. Next up, we're talking about hard rock, my favorite hard rock album of 2024. I'm going to go with Deep Purple and their album Equals One. Now, this is obviously a legendary band that formed a long time ago, and this is hard rock. It's got a bit of progressive rock influences, a bit of blues. And this one, I'm just going to put in my very good tier. It didn't quite cross up to excellent. But this is their 23rd album, and they're a band from the UK who's still going strong after putting out their first two albums way back in 1968. So I think they deserve credit for still being as amazing as they are. And I didn't love their last album, Turning to Crime, since it's a covers album and I prefer originals. It was still okay, but I think the two before that, Infinite and Whoosh, are among some of the best albums they've ever done, and comparable to classics like Machine Head, which is an amazing album. And based on the singles from this album, I could tell Deep Purple still knows how to rock in their bluesy rock style. They're one of the best at that style, if not the best of all time. And a lot of the deeper cuts on the album are even better than the singles. There's great guitar playing, great keyboard playing on here, solid songwriting with great riffs, even some cool key changes. And I was hoping they'd have some more progressive rock sounding songs on this album like they had on Infinite. There were a few moments of that, but it leaned more towards bluesy hard rock the majority of the time. So I don't find this album as good as Infinite or Whoosh for me, but it's certainly better than their most recent covers album, Turning to Crime, and they really know how to open and close an album because my two favorite tracks are the opener, which is my favorite. I think it's called Show Me. And that's just a great way to open the album with energy, awesome guitar playing right away. And then the closer, Bleeding Obvious, which has some cool parts with 7 beats per bar in the intro. And then it goes into a more straightforward, but still well written and performed track. If that sounds good to you, check out Equals One by Deep Purple. Now let's talk about indie rock. For this genre, I picked One Eyed Band is the name of the album, and the artist is called the Mommy Heads. This is the 16th album by this American band, and it's indie rock with Baroque pop, progressive rock, alternative rock, and art rock influences. Check out the song Risk It All for a preview of that. This is also my very good tier. And I thought their last album, Coney Island Kid from 2023, was excellent and even a bit better than this one, One Eyed Band. But they both kind of remind me of newer music by the band Thrice, in that it's more of that alternative indie folk pop rock stuff, but with some progressive songwriting and artistic flair. This one continues that sound. The vocal style and songwriting still reminds me of new Thrice music, but minus any of the hardcore influence. You don't really hear, you hear some hardcore in Thrice, but you don't hear that here in the Mommy Heads. It's like Thrice minus the hardcore. But the bass here is really interesting and busy on this album. It uses a lot of cool effects in the song Architect, for example. Chicken Soup and Risk It All are both nice songs with 7 beats per bar, showing their interest in odd time signatures that we prog fans like. Now I got 2 more genres to go. Second last one I'm going to mention is punk rock. So my favorite punk rock album of 2024. If you're not counting post-hardcore as punk rock, because I made a separate video for that, so check out my 10 favorite post-hardcore, or I think I gave my 5 favorite and at least 5 honorable mentions. Check that out on my channel. I've already said my favorite post-hardcore albums of 2024 in their own video, but this one is like doesn't really fit into post-hardcore exactly, so I'm calling it punk rock. That's 4 Year Strong with analysis paralysis. This is punk rock. It's got a lot of pop, so it's almost like pop punk, but it does have a bit of that melodic hardcore influence too, and the odd scream on here. And this is the 8th album by this American band. And before the album came out, I heard the single Daddy of Mine. That had intense, fast, hardcore riffing and harsh vocals at the beginning and in the verses, and then it had this like really catchy pop punk chorus with clean singing. That's one of my favorite tracks on the album, along with Uncooked, which is really catchy, and Dead End Friend, which is also great. That sounds good to you. Check out 4 Year Strong and their album Analysis Paralysis. One more sip of water before I talk about the last album in this series of 10 album recommendations. This is going to be pop rock, and it's by an artist called Gavin Castleton, and the album's called Pattern Breaker. This is the 9th solo album by this American musician, and it's pop rock. It's got R&B, it's got soul, art rock, electronic, and even some progressive rock influences. And it's hard to count how many albums Gavin Castleton has when I was looking into like, is this his night? This is the first one I've heard in full, but he has so many EPs, he has compilations, he has covers albums, singles, he has 7 inches. So it's really hard to tell what counts as an album for him, but I think this is his ninth. And I heard that he had worked with the Deer Hunter doing keyboards and backing vocals from 2016 to 2021. And since I love the Deer Hunters, I love them so much, and he was a part of them, that's what made me want to check this out. These are just really great singer-songwriter pop rock songs. Very catchy. It's a very short album. It's only 28 minutes long. 3 of the 9 songs are just called Sketch 1, Sketch 2, and Sketch 3, and they're pretty much just short sketches rather than full songs. The other songs are great. My favorite after hearing this a couple times is Layoffs, which is a song sung from the perspective of a CEO who's laying off a bunch of people and saying he takes responsibility for it, but he isn't taking any pay cut himself. He's basically giving a bunch of empty apologies and platitudes. Gavin Castleton also lists hip hop as a genre on his Bandcamp, but I didn't hear any of that on here. Maybe people with a more keen ear could hear the hip hop influence, but I didn't hear much here. But if you're a fan of the Deer Hunter and like this kind of indie pop, but with some more like R&B, soul, electronic influences, then check out Gavin Castleton with Pattern Breaker. And that's it for these 10 rock albums. My favorite rock album in each of the 10 rock subgenres I mentioned in this video. I know there's more rock subgenres that I didn't touch on. There's probably like 100 if I really tried for it, but these are kind of the main ones, I think. And I have another video on, post-hardcore. Like I said, I've made a metalcore, my favorite 5 metalcore albums of the year. I've made my 5 favorite instrumental albums of the year video. And I've done my 5 favorite black metal albums of the year. My big 2 genres are, of course, prog metal and prog rock, so I'll probably make videos on those last. But some of the other videos I'm thinking of doing for year-end are, I might do 1 or 2 videos on technical death metal and melodic death metal, and my favorite albums of those. And then I might just make a similar video to this, like this rock one, but make it for metal and the subgenres of metal. Like maybe I'll do my 10 favorite metal albums in each of 10 different subgenres of metal, like power metal, heavy metal, doom metal, alternative, symphonic, sludge, post metal, avant-garde, and thrash. If you want to see any of those, let me know down below. Let me know what you're interested in seeing from me. And what do you think of the albums on this list? Have you heard any of them? Which ones do you like? What would be your favorite rock album in each of the subgenres I mentioned? And I also want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I just hit 200 subscribers recently. So I put up a poll in my community tab on my channel here where I've asked for people's opinion on what kind of video I should make to celebrate that milestone. So I have 3 ideas for a video there to celebrate the milestone. I'm either going to rank the Yes Epics, rank the Prog Archives top 10 albums of all time, or give my favorite 5 album runs. So far, ranking Prog Archives top 10 albums of all time is winning in that poll. So that will probably be the one. I'm not sure when I'm going to record this video. It might be in the new year in January because of all this year-end stuff I'm doing. I want to wrap that up first. Or I may just end up doing it mixed in with all the year-end stuff. I'm not sure yet what order I'm going to do these videos in. But stay tuned for that. And if you're new here and you like metal, rock, and prog music, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment sharing any album recommendations you have for me, and stay tuned for next time. Peace out.